Shalom, shalom. Giving all praise and all glory to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh. And on this video presentation, I'm going to go over a piece of artifacts that the camps, those who come out of school of thought of One West, are trying to justify or have been using all throughout the years to try to say that Hispanics and Latinos are Israelites, and it's called the Los Lunas inscriptions. Even at one point, I used to also subscribe to that piece of artifact, or that so-called piece of artifact, to try to substantiate and prove that Hispanics and Native Americans are Israelites. And you also have other Israelites out there who also want to utilize that piece of artifact, or that so-called piece of artifact, to try to insinuate that the Holy Land is located here in the Americas. Whether they said it's located in Peru, in Mexico, or in Utah, or in the western portion of the United States. What I'm going to prove to you guys that, number one, the Los Lunas inscriptions is a hoax. A lot of these so-called ancient Paleo-Hebrew artifacts that you find in the Americas are all frauds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this article right now, and you check it out for yourself on ancientorigins.net. The information has always been there. And it says that the Los Lunas Decalogue stone, questioning evidence of ancient Hebrews in the American Southwest. And it says lost civilization, mysterious artifacts, and vanished people have always fascinated those with an interest in antiquity. However, the first archaeologists were little more glorified treasure hunters. It was only later that the scientific method and rigorous systems of recording and excavating archaeological sites were established in the field of people like C.J. Thompson, James Jacobstein, Hermesen, Warson, and Flanders Petrie. Scientifically minded archaeologists tend to treat claims of the lost or forgotten with much more skepticism and their treasure hunting predecessors. Yet, extraordinary claims about archaeological finds still occur in archaeology. An example of this is what the Los Lunas Decalogue stone. It is a stone found southwest of Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can find it in the state of New Mexico to this day. With the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments describe Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 17 of the Hebrew Old Testament written on it. Some people say the stone predates Christopher Columbus' voyage to Hispaniola by as much as 1,500 years. This is interesting possibility, but how does it stand up to scrutiny? And a lot of camps are also trying to utilize this stone to trying to correlate it with Second Ezra 13th chapter. They're trying to use the Second Ezra and the Apocrypha to support their false claims that the Northern Kingdom of 10 tribes came to the Americas. So I'm going to continue reading. And it says, studying the stone. The Los Lunas Decalogue stone is a slab of basalt which appears to have the Ten Commandments written on an Paleo-Hebrew script. Paleo-Hebrew is an early form of Hebrew alphabet, and it is similar to the Phoenician alphabet. The earliest known use of the Paleo-Hebrew is the Gocc calendar, dating to the 10th century BCE. And it says that the Los Lunas Decalogue stone was discovered by the archaeologist Frank Hibben. He was the one who discovered it, who said that he was brought to the site by a guide who discovered the stone in the 1800s. And in 1985, George Morehouse, a mineralogist and a member of the Epigraphic Society, examined the stone and said that it was 500 to 2,000 years old after comparing it to graffiti dating to the 1930s. He estimated the age based on how much the rock had been weathered by wind blows sand. Over the years, several language, I repeat that again, over the years, several language and religious scholars have examined the script, including Professor James Tabor, Cyrus Gordon, Richard Plummer, and Scupping. The text has some interesting characteristics. For example, although it is an early form of Hebrew, it also shows Hellenistic influence. Hellenistic influence is also on the stone. In some areas, you have Greek letters substituted for Hebrew letters. However, it also used an archaic form of Hebrew letter Aleph, roughly equivalent to the letter A. There are some symbols included in the text which were not used in Hebrew until the Middle Ages, which represents a problem in dating it before that time. Critics of the text intensity also take issue with the presence of orthographic errors. For example, the author treated Aleph as a vowel, when in ancient Hebrew it is a consonant. The text creator also made mistakes with other letters, such as treating two letters representing distinct sounds as if they were the same sound, kaf, kof, which are rendered as K English transliteration. So you have this piece of so-called artifact called the lowest limits inscriptions that are filled with errors that even amateurs who are expert in the Hebrew language wouldn't even dare to make. Okay? Is the song authentic? And it says skeptics point out to these orthographic errors as evidence against the authenticity of the stone. They say that the ancient Hebrews would not have made such elementary mistakes with the sacred text, and that's factual. And especially when you're dealing with the laws, in particular the Ten Commandments that you can find in Exodus the 28th chapter. Along with the Israelites, our forefathers, made all these different mistakes, such elementary and amateur mistakes in dealing with the text. However, defenders of the stone's authenticity contend that the mistake simply suggests that it was written by someone who did not speak Hebrew as the first language, perhaps a native Greek speaker instead. So even the people who are defending the stone, they also coming out and saying that it was written by another person who did not speak or even write Hebrew, but he was a person who knew how to speak Greek. Scoopin and Cyrus Gordon, for example, suggest that whoever made the inscriptions lived in the Byzantine period. In other words, what they're trying to say is simply that the stone is not ancient. It doesn't go back prior to 722 BCE like you Israelite camps are trying to insinuate and say that it was the Northern Kingdom, the Hispanics and the Native Americans who brought that piece of evidence with them over here in the Americas. That's a lie. Even the people who are defending the stone are coming out saying that the person who wrote this did not even know how to speak Hebrew. And it says their hypothesis is based on word order. And they note similarities between spelling in Hebrew and conventions used in Greek. While this is plausible, the text also contains conventions that were not added until well after the Byzantine period. So they're saying that this piece of stone was written during the time period, or it was written by a person who lived during the time of the Byzantine era, such as symbols used to indicate a letter that is missing from a word. This makes a medieval or post-medieval date more likely. You see that? Linguist Cyrus Gordon suggests that the stone was a Samaritan mezuzah stone slab bearing the dedicated name at an entrance of a property of synagogue, and that the style reflects a Samaritan source rather than a paleo stone. The problem with the hypothesis is that although the style may look Samaritan, the text itself does not allow Samaritan wording, but uses ancient Hebrew Masoretic words. For example, the stone has the Masoretic floor. Remember the Sabbath day, while the Samaritan virgin preserved their Sabbath day. And it says, while it may be that the ancient writer was unfamiliar with Hebrew source and confused the styles out of ignorance, this does not explain why those commissioned the stone would have allowed the mistakes to go uncorrected. On the other end, critics of the stone authenticity, such as archaeologist Keith Fitzpatrick Matthews, argue that the stylistic inconsistencies combined with the use of conventions that date to the Middle Age rather than the supposed date make it more likely that the inscription was created much more later. It is not an ancient inscription. It was not written prior, or I would say a little bit after 722 BCE. This is factual. Another question about the stone's authenticity is the absence of archaeological evidence for ancient Hebrew populations. Haha! Archaeological evidence for ancient Hebrew populations in southern or southwestern United States. As archaeologist Kenneth Feather points out, artifacts don't occur in a vacuum but have context and associated with other aspects of archaeological sites. He also argues that if they were ancient Hebrews who went to North America and traveled that far inland, that they would have also left behind other evidence of Hebrew material culture, such as ironworking, remains of Middle Eastern livestock, such as sheep, goat, predating the coming of Spaniards and Norse, in more instances, Hebrew writing. And by the way, the paleo form of quote unquote Hebrew or the Phoenician form of Hebrew, that's not our language and that's not our alphabet. You can find our alphabet and our language on the Bula clay tablet or the Bula clay stones. And you cannot find any of the Bula clay stones or tablets anywhere in the Americas. You can find those pieces of artifacts over there in the land of Israel, which is located in West Asia, or what people call the quote unquote Middle East. You're not going to find any of these artifacts here in the Americas. There are no ancient archaeological artifacts throughout North Central and South America that would suggest that the Israelites came over here during the time, or when you read the book of Second Ezra of the 13th chapter. And I'm gonna also go into some of these other artifacts also too, such as the Bat Creek inscriptions and so on and so forth. All these artifacts are false. All these artifacts are forgeries. These other camps out there, what they're currently doing right now is they're using outdated information. A lot of this information has been debunked for so many years. You see, let me tell you something. If any of these camps stepped in any of these scholars and these quote unquote learning institutions, they will make mockery of them because they're using outdated information. Another outdated information is dealing with what? Lost Tribes and Promised Land, the history of the Native Americans by James Diaz. All these different books are outdated. All these different books are outdated, and they've done other discoveries to prove that all of these different pieces that they brought forth were false. And this information had already been debunked on numerous occasions. It says, if there were ancient Hebrews in New Mexico thousands of years ago, the Los Lunas Dedicum stone is the only evidence for them found so far. In fact, nomadic ancient Hebrews who left barely any evidence could have been present in New Mexico's as nomadic people do not leave much behind. The Scythians, for example, are only known to have existed because of the burial mounds they created. However, even nomads leave behind more than a single object. They often leave bones, campsites, and graves. So far, no more Eastern animal remains, Hebrew styles graves, or Hebrew campsites have been found in the American Southwest. Remember, you guys are making a claim that Hispanics and Native Americans came to the Americas after the Assyrian captivity, right? Pursuant to Second Ezra, the 13th chapter. And that's a whole other topic with the book of Second Ezra, which is false. Well, it's not. Well, I'm not going to say that it's a false book, but it was written much more later on. You're not even going to find that book in the Septuagint, but that's a whole other topic. More data is needed. In addition to problems, which the stone itself, it has been questioned if Frank Hibben was a reliable source. Over the course of his career, he was accused of fabricating archaeological evidence to support his theory on how humans arrived in the Americas. Furthermore, George Morehouse was a mineralogist, not an expert on weather description. This does not necessarily mean that they were dishonest in the case, but it does suggest that anything that Hinton and Morehouse said may need further investigation. It is possible that the Los Lunas gocc stone will be evidence of an ancient Jewish arrival in America, but elementary mistakes, a whole lot of mistakes in the text, conventions that appear to mother for Paleo Hebrew inscriptions, the lack of reliable archaeological evidence for Hebrew culture in North America, and unreliability of the discoverer make it unnecessarily unlikely that the artifact is genuine. In the very least, more data is needed before concluding the existence of pre-Columbian Hebrew settlement in the American Southwest. As you can see, the Los Lunas inscription is not an ancient piece of artifact of our forefathers, which further proves that Native Americans and Hispanics are not Israelites, number one. And it also further proves that the Holy Land is not located in Utah or on the west coast portion of the United States. The Holy Land is not located in Mexico. The Holy Land is not located in Peru, or aka what they like to say is of Jerusalem. I mean, the information is out there. Okay, these different pieces of so-called artifacts or fake artifacts are not tangible evidence to prove that the Native and the Hispanics are Israelites. I mean, another one that you can slice that so easily is you go straight to DNA. DNA totally crushes that because us as Israelites who carry the E1B1A Y-DNA genetic marker, we don't have the same DNA as Hispanics and Native American Indians. Okay, even if you check out in the phylogenetic tree, it will show you that these people come from a different stock. So they're not our people. DNA totally destroys everything. This is why these different camps they don't want to deal with DNA. Because you're gonna find out that the Hispanics and Native you have in your camps are white. The majority of them are white or Europeans. And if they're not white or Europeans, then it's of Southeast Asian origins. Okay, and then you're also going to find out that a lot of these people who call themselves Negroes or black in these camps are also not Israelites. A lot of them are also Europeans because about 30% of black people or people who call themselves blacks throughout North Central South America, they do carry the European white DNA genetic marker. So a lot of them are also not Israelites. You see? But I'm going to end this video presentation right now. I'm going to say shalom, and I'll see you guys in the next one.